So there's a misconception that if you're single, you are incomplete, perhaps damaged, salvaged, and you won't be happy until you find your one. And that is not true. That is bullshit. It is a message that has been fed to us by media and advertising. The truth is, when you're single, you have the richest soil for growth. That's why I created this podcast. And unlike other podcasts, this one is host-driven, not guest-driven. That means I will be rotating health and wellness experts 3 times a week to give you the giant box of wellness crayons, not just the primary colors, so you can start building a meaningful life. It's time to give singlehood a cape.
Greetings, and welcome to Single on Purpose. My name is Maria Two Straps. I am a sex educator, sex and relationships coach, also a kink educator, and a intimacy coordinator for film and television. And today I wanted to talk about being single and kinky on purpose. And I have a pretty damn awesome guest by the name of Erin Tillman with me, who will be on in a little bit. But we are here to talk to you about being single and kinky on purpose and using kink to learn about yourself, especially when you're single. Because personally, I think that being single is a great time and it's a great opportunity to learn about kink and to figure out what you like, what you don't like, and to figure out what your place in the space is. So, again, my name is Maria Two Straps. You can call me Maria. You can call me Two Straps. And let's start with how I got into kink. So, kink is a fun little space. How I got into kink was, I think I had some inclinations and it was a scary world. And then I realized that kink, especially the flogging was how I got into kink. So I realized that flogging was kind of sort of the same patterns that I used for martial arts, because I did some martial arts growing up, and eskrima, which is Filipino stick fighting, same techniques as flogging. And I was like, what the fuck? This is cool. This is easy. And so I started swinging some floggers around. And the more I started practicing, the more I started swinging, the more I started realizing, whoa, this is really helping calm my brain. And as someone with ADHD, sometimes calming your brain is the hardest fucking thing because your brain is going 5 million miles an hour. So how I got into kink, I picked up a flogger, I started swinging it around, and by accident, I was like, wow, this is actually kind of fun. And then exploring that with other folks, exploring that with partners and things like that. So it actually helped me with my ADHD, and it actually helped me be a better person because I had to learn pretty damn quickly about personal boundaries and communicating. And honestly, I think that is the one of the strongest foundations of kink and BDSM. The best kinksters I know are the best boundary setters and the best negotiators. They know what the fuck they want. They know what the fuck they don't want. They know what their maybes are, and they just go. They're able to communicate that. They're able to talk about that clearly and succinctly, and it's very respectful. And I think that that's why, as a single person, I feel like exploring kink can be the best to learn about yourself, learn about what you like, what you don't like, and also build a language of communicating your boundaries, communicating your wants, your needs, and things like that. Because again, in the kink space, if you're going to do a scene, you kind of have to know a lot of things. You kind of have to know where your boundaries are. You kind of have to know what your red lights are, so your hard stops, what your yellow lights are, your kind of maybes, and what your green lights are, your go-go-goes, things like that. So I wanted to break down some definitions really quickly. So what exactly is kink? I think we see things like 50 Shades of Grey, which, by the way, please don't use 50 Shades of Grey as an example for healthy consensual kink, because without consent, it is not fucking kink. And I will say that one more time. Without consent, it is not fucking kink. You cannot force someone into submission. You cannot force someone to do things that you do not want to do. Unless there's consent involved, and it is not kink. So I wanted to break down some definitions really quickly. So what is kink? Kink is whatever is not vanilla to you. So kink is whatever is not vanilla to you. So what's vanilla for me can be not vanilla for someone else, and vice versa. And that's fine. Kink is whatever is not vanilla to you. And it's also whatever the fuck you want it to be. Again, as long as consent is there, it's whatever the fuck you want it to be. So kink can be you are role playing being clowns in space, or you are role playing being dinosaurs in the Cenozoic era. Whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. As long as people are having fun, as long as there is, again, consent. Some common misconceptions of kink are that the big one, it's violent, it's scary, people are wearing leather and beating the fuck out of each other. That's not the case. That's not the case a lot of the time. Yeah, sometimes if that's your jam, again, if there's consent involved, yeah, go for it. But it is not all violent. A lot of kink can be intimate. A lot of kink can be soft and sensual. A lot of kink can be happy and giddy. And yeah, sometimes kink can be dark and leathery and scary and intimidating. A common misconception as well is kink always leads to sex, and that is not the case. Kink does not always have to lead to sex. You can do it with your platonic friends. You can do it with someone you just met at the dungeon. It does not always lead to sex. Although, yeah, sometimes in the media it is portrayed that way, but that is not always the case. You can be dinosaurs in the Cenozoic era without and not be having sex. You can be clowns in space and not be having sex. You're just role playing and having fun with your scene partner or partners. Another common misconception is that it's only done with an intimate partner. Yes, there is a sense of intimacy you should have with your partner and or partners, but kink can also be done with friends. It doesn't have to be an intimate partner because, again, it doesn't always have to lead to sex. It can be fun. It can be playful. It can be meditative. It could just be it can be stress relief. It could be play. It's, again, whatever the fuck you want it to be. There are no bounds. You're only limited by your imagination and the boundaries of consent. I wanted to break some more definitions down. So I broke down kink, which is anything that's not vanilla to you. So think of kink as an umbrella. And underneath that umbrella, there's a little section that's BDSM. So not all kink is BDSM, but all BDSM can be considered kink. BDSM stands for bondage and discipline, domination and submission, and sadism and masochism. Bondage, pretty self-explanatory. Being tied up is an example. Discipline, so enforcing rules and following those rules. Domination and submission, incorporating those power dynamics into your play. And sadism and masochism. Sadism, you like inflicting consensual pain, and masochism, you enjoy receiving that consensual pain. Again, consensual. Without consent, it is not kink. So that's what BDSM is. Again, kink is the umbrella term. BDSM is under that umbrella. There's also a word called fetish that a lot of people use. Sometimes it gets confused with kink. There are some slight differences though. So kink is something that someone enjoys but does not necessarily need for orgasm or completion. A fetish can be a very, very strong inclination for someone, and can be something that somebody needs to orgasm, or somebody needs for completion. Right? Kink, I like it, but I don't need it. Fetish, I fucking need that. Right? There's also the terms dom and sub. So the dominant is the one that has the power in the scene. The submissive is the one who is giving up their power in the scene. Right? But in reality, if you think about it, subs also have power. Right? In a scene, a sub can, even though they're relinquishing their power in the scene, they can still hit their code word, or they can still hit their safe words. They can still adjust the scene as necessary. if a strike is too hard, for example, and things like that. And it is important for a sub to be vocal about their wants and needs. In fact, the best subs I know are some of the most assertive people out there. And the best dominants I know out there are the best listeners, right? And then there's also the terms top and bottom. Sometimes top gets equated with dom, sometimes sub gets equated with bottom. And yeah, sometimes samesies, but slight differences. The top and bottom refers more to position, right? Whereas dom and sub refers more to the power dynamics at play. A dom can be in the bottom position, but can still be in control, for example. So some quick definitions, little baby definitions. And I also wanted to talk about soft skills and hard skills, which the soft skills I feel like are what make up the foundation of the kink and the BDSM community. These soft skills, don't be fooled by the name. Soft skills are hard. Hard skills are pretty damn easy. Soft skills are kind of a never-ending thing that you learn and you practice every single day. Believe it or not, you've been using soft skills every single day. You use your soft skills when you are ordering your takeout food with your Uber driver. You're drunk as fuck. It's 3 a.m. You're in the drive-through line, and you're using your soft skills to drunkenly order your Taco Bell at 3 a.m. So you're negotiating with the employee, with the worker. I would like a number 3 chalupa combo, whatever the fuck you enjoy, with a large Mountain Dew. And then they repeat the order to you. Oh, okay, so number 3 chalupa, extra cheese, large Mountain Dew on the side, or large Coke on the side. And you're like, no, I want the Mountain Dew. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm sorry, the Mountain Dew. It is. And then you get your order, and then you're happy, right? You're happy because you've negotiated this with each other. You've told them what you want. And if they adjusted, if they made a mistake, and then they give it to you, and then you're happy and everyone's happy, they get paid, you get your chalupa, all is good, right? We do this all the time when we're negotiating scenes, when we're negotiating the things that we enjoy, that we love, things like that. So soft skills are the communication skills. Think of it as the people skills. And sometimes this can be tricky, especially when you are trying to negotiate a complex scene that you want to do with someone. Hard skills are more of the tactile skills, the things like I'm going to learn to flog, or the things like I'm going to learn to tie rope and practice shibari, things like that. Hard skills, yes, you practice it, make sure that, because sometimes there's a high risk in a lot of these things, especially with rope, especially if you're going to rig someone, you have to make sure that you totally know these hard skills, and you know not to endanger or harm the other person permanently and things like that. Safety mechanisms, safety things, stuff like that. So, but it's the soft skills that I feel like are the hardest for some people. Hard skills you can practice on your own a lot of the time. Soft skills you practice and you learn and you perfect your moves with other people. And sometimes that is trickier because shit, communication is hard. Come on, let's face it. Sometimes talking is hard. So how can something that looks to the outside world violent and deviant and painful actually be a healthy tool for self-growth, especially for single folks? I think that because of the kink baseline of soft skills, right? That foundation of soft skills, the talks about consent, that talks about boundaries, that talks about what you want, that talks about what you need, the negotiations, the aftercare. There's so much fucking care in the scene. There's so much fucking care putting the scene together, and there's so much fucking care afterwards too. There's just a lot. There's a lot happening, and the communication is set tenfold, right? And I think it's this baseline of soft skills and communicating that really, really makes a lot of our community members so damn strong. There's been research out there that folks who regularly are involved in kink and BDSM, they have higher relationship satisfaction, they have higher sexual satisfaction, higher satisfaction overall, because they're able to talk clearly about their wants, their needs, their desires, etc. In a lot of vanilla relationships, sometimes there can be expectations like gender roles, sex roles, etc. And there can be a lot of things that are left unsaid. You're just going in there, this is what they expected of me, so I'm going to do this. And a lot of things get swept under the rug. But sometimes if that's not what someone wants and they're just kind of going along and just taking it in, sometimes that can lead to resentment because you're not talking about it. That can lead to too much resentment can lead to contempt later on down the road. And that's not what you want for your relationship. You want communication, you want talking and things like that. You want these soft skills, which are already a foundation in the kink world. And in kink, you can transgress these expectations, these gender role expectations, these sexual expectations. You can gender bend again. You can be whatever the fuck you want, as long as that consent is involved and is talked about. Through kink exploration, you learn about what you enjoy. You learn and practice your yeses, your green lights. I like to call them green lights, your maybes, your yellow lights, and also your red lights, your hard no's. Like, I'm definitely not doing that, but maybe if I'm in the right headspace, I'm down to do this. Or, fuck yes, I love flogging, let's go. You set clear-cut ways on how to achieve what you want, things like that. You learn to become blatantly explicit and communicative about your wants, needs, and desires, because sometimes these scenes can be very complex and they can involve a lot of risk. And for example, if you're going to tie someone up and you're going to rig them, you better fucking have a conversation about that. You don't just go in there and just do it. If something feels awkward and weird, people say that in the moment. And what's beautiful about kink is that it's welcomed. Yes, you can adjust in the middle of a scene. It's okay. It's invited, actually. As a dom, as a top, if you tell me that you need to adjust this thing, I'll be like, yeah, absolutely, cool. I want to give you the pleasure that you want, that you came here for. Let's go. You learn to be blatantly explicit. This is an important one. You learn to become blatantly explicit about your no's beforehand and in the moment. Especially as a female, we learn to just say yes and be polite and not rock the boat and things like that. But one thing about kink that helped me be a better person, and I'm very grateful about, is learning how to fucking say no. And that is important. No is a complete sentence, is very important. No, I don't want to do this. I'm down to do this instead. And I love that about kink and BDSM. Again, kink and BDSM, it is great and it is ideal when you're single. Fucking go for it. And in my head, I think that it's easier when you're single too, because you don't have to worry about another person's feelings and things like that. You can learn about yourself more and then take it into you when you're ready to form a new relationship, an intimate relationship with someone. I learned a lot when I was single and practicing kink. And it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful explorative process. I made some mistakes. I adjusted. I learned so many things about myself. I learned so many things about my ADHD. Personally, I think kink has been one of the best tools to help me manage my ADHD. It's the one thing that helps me calm my fucking ADHD ass brain up. Through flogging, through rope, through these technical hard skills, these technical exercises. Holy shit. It was beautiful. And I have a special guest with me. Her name is Erin Tillman. And she's got a lot of bragging rights, and I'm sure she'll talk about them. So Erin's going to talk to you about why single folks should explore kink and tell you about some ways that you can get involved in the community as a kinkster, as a single kinkster, how to do it safely and things like that. So Erin Tillman, everyone.
Hi, so I'm Erin Tillman, aka the dating advice girl. Historically, I have been known as a dating coach for the past 10 years, 10 plus years. I'm also a certified sex educator and a certified intimacy coordinator for TV and film. So a lot of my work is comes around empowerment, consent, boundaries, and really just helping people, whether it's personally or professionally, just find the thing that feels in alignment with them, or find the people or the lifestyle that feels in alignment for them. So kink is a very interesting topic, and I feel like there's so many misconceptions around it, what it is, how you do it, um, who's considered to be knowledgeable about it, etc. And how do you do it, right? So there's this, I feel like 50 Shades of Gray, that's the thing that people know in the mainstream world around this stuff. And a lot of times, things like that are media in terms of kink aren't necessarily accurate. And I would say oftentimes aren't isn't an accurate representation of what it actually is, specifically in the world of kink. Um, you know, because it's not super well known in mainstream formats, there's like this fantastical idea of what it is, and a lot of times it's problematic and potentially hurtful or dangerous. So when I first started getting into kink, um, let's see, gosh, it's probably been about 10 years at this point. I started meeting people who were talking about different like events and parties they were going to. I float in and out of being single and not single, and monogamous and non-monogamous through my life. And when I started getting into kink, I was single. And so it was a really fun time to explore what was out there. It has to be said that I'm a Black woman. At the time, I would say wasn't identifying as queer or pansexual, but definitely was. But also, at that time, 10 years ago, especially in Los Angeles, there weren't a ton of options for queer or pansexual people in kink. So, a lot of my exploration would be in spaces that felt more heterosexual, felt more gendered in terms of roles, um, like dom submissive roles. A lot of events I'd go to, I would witness a lot of masculine people, specifically men, being the dominants, and then feminine people, specifically women, being the submissives, which did not feel in alignment for me. I've always been someone who leaned more dominant. Also, just in my like regular dating life too, I've tended to date people who were a little more beta or submissive, or um um so because of that, being in those environments or those parties where I didn't see anyone like me being more dominant, it was kind of weird. I'm like, well, what? So there were a few places that specifically did femdom nights, which was highly interesting to me. Quick fun story. I remember going to a friend's party at their apartment, just like a regular get together on a Friday night, like not kinky, not BDSM related at all. And I remember this girl walked in to the party with this guy on a collar and leash. He was on a collar and leash, crawling into the apartment wearing a suit. And this was early on. So this is before I started going to events or parties or anything. And I remember thinking, I know, not even thinking, I said to a friend of mine, I'm like, hold on, who is that? And who's this guy she's bringing in that's crawling into this thing? And what are they doing? And my friend was like, oh, well, she's a pro dom, a professional dominatrix. And he paid money to fly to Los Angeles and be treated like this. This is what they do. I'm like, oh my God, like, I want to know more about that. Like, just in the dynamics of what society says gender roles are supposed to be, and what people socialized as women are supposed to do, and people socialized as men are supposed to be and do. This was like busting all of those dynamics. I was like, I don't even know, but this is amazing. So I think that I should have said that first. That was definitely one of my early experiences that made me want to know more about what all of this was. All this, like why does this guy want to do this? Like he's getting so much out of this. They both are gaining something from this. This is so great, and it's not a stereotypical dynamic. I would say that in regular societal conversations that for sure would be like people there would be just big question marks like what, how is this even a thing? So that's one of the things I love about kink and BDSM is that it really is a way to learn more about yourself um in the confines of a structured dynamic that if done well through conversations can have a specific framework and time frame where you're entering in this dynamic and where the dynamic can then shift and you can go back to um whoever you are outside of a kink dynamic regularly, so to speak. It's a place to play and explore. It's a place to put on different personas if you want to. It's a place to play dress up. For me, especially in my single times when I'm exploring kink, it's a really fun time to not feel like you're beholden to what a partner thinks about what you're exploring or having to listen to someone else's opinion or get permission from a partner. Obviously, you need to get permission from your partners, your play partners, or people you might be playing with in kinky dynamics, but meaning there's not like a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a romantic partner that you have to check in with, because if you're single and exploring kink, you can kind of explore whatever you want without having to worry too much about what your romantic partner says or thinks. I will say just like a side note, I mean, for someone who is non-monogamous, I definitely know some people who have, dynamics where they aren't kinky with their romantic partner, but they have an agreement with their romantic partner that they can explore kink with other partners, just the kink part. So, there's a lot of agreements that couples can have as well around this stuff. I would say also that, we're saying that kink is you could learn more about yourself in terms of what you're interested in kinkily, their kink interests, but also just to get to know yourself as a person through kink. I've learned a lot about myself knowing just viscerally when I'm doing certain things. Like I tend to be someone who likes to explore kink dynamics in terms of service. So, um, who can be of service to me? I've had people be in service to me, meaning run errands for me or clean for me or um, help me with different tasks or help me at some of my events. Like that's one of my love languages for sure, service. And um, you know, I know that's one of my love languages. Like how do you know? How do you know what your love languages are? For me, there is a specific feeling that I get. Um, like an excitement, like a literally like an energetic boost in my body if I'm doing something in life, but also kink related, where I get like a like a feeling like that. Yay! That feeling. That's the feeling. Like that's the feeling that I think a lot of people. I'll keep it to myself. A lot of people seek, but specifically, that's when I know that I'm feeling an alignment with pursuing something related to kink, or if someone does something service wise, and I get that feeling of that's I love that. That's the feeling that I get from exploring kink in certain and specific certain dynamics with certain people in my life. And I learned that just by trying. I learned that by going to different events. I'm definitely I started exploring kink mostly as a voyeur, like going and wanting to like just observe and see what people were doing and um, see how other people were playing or interacting with each other, but not actually doing anything with anybody. I'm still very um, selective about who I do any sort of kink play with in public, in private, but also a lot of my exploration in kink is, it feels like performance to me. It feels like theater, kinky theater, I call it. It's like kinky theater. So, and there's people who are exhibitionists who do like to be watched at events in particular. So it's really great. It's a win-win. It's like I can learn about myself. I can go to a lot of events, I can potentially, if it's the right time and if people are open to it, ask people I see. I ask them questions about their kind of play that they're involved in, or what places they go to, where do they learn about things. So the best place to get started to do kink stuff and to learn about it is just take as many classes as you can. There's a lot of really great classes out there. In-person classes if you're in Los Angeles and other big cities, but if you're not, there's a ton of virtual options too. More and more, there's a lot of people really trying to educate other people around kink and BDSM in the name of safety, in the name of consent, and just in the name of consensual exploration. I mean, I think we're in a time in society where there's so much shame and a lack of understanding about a lot of things that could be considered counterculture or a subculture. And the more that we can educate each other about what these things actually are, what these things actually um, can do, or can bring out of us in a cathartic way, in a happy way, in a pleasurable way, all these words, all these feelings, the more understanding will happen, and the more we can kind of just like um, bring to light that there are things in these realms that are very helpful and can be very helpful, and again, if done consensually and safety, really really can add to someone's um, just make everyone better, like interact with each other better, be happier in each other's lives, etc. Real fast, I mean, some safety things, I think it's really important to talk about safety when we're talking about kink and BDSM. And, some safety things to look out for. If you meet, especially if you're single, if you're on, there's certain websites that you can meet other kinky people specifically on. And, or if you meet someone at an event, it's really important that there be a high emphasis on boundaries and hard limits. Like those things are really important. So if you're, for example, say someone messages you on a website and is like, you say on your profile that I'm kinky or into kink things or that kind of thing, and then the person messages you and there isn't a conversation around boundaries or hard limits, for me that's a red flag. Like one of the early things that I feel like should be talked about is, what are you not into? Like, what are the things you're into? Like I said before, my thing is service. So I'm pretty outspoken about that. I lead with that. So, I also say that my hard limits or things I'm not interested in are anything that causes pain. Like I'm not a sadist. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want anyone to inflict pain on me either. So that's a hard limit for me. So that's why it's so important to bring those things up early on, because if there's people who specifically are seeking sadism and pain and things like that, like I'm not a good choice, right? So anyone who's not asking those things early, that is definitely a red flag. Also, people who are kind of like boastful about all the people they played with, or if there's a feeling of like them trying to prove something in terms of like they're the best, and like that like, do not, like, just be careful, like danger. I feel like the most well-rounded people that I know in the kink scene and kink scenes are people who encourage learning in a lot of ways, or encourage exploration, and it's not like only learn from me or only learn from this one person. It's like no, everyone has a different style, so learn everywhere you can and then see what fits for you. I think those are the best tips I can give in terms of safety. I think my final point that I want to bring up is, so how can you get started in your community safely. There's a lot of really great events. I mean, it's important to say that bigger cities do have more options typically. I came from a small town. I'm sorry, small town folks. I know it's so hard. It really is hard to find community in small towns. But like I said before, there's a lot of online places that you can meet other people and just learn the basics of kink and get to know um, what you might be interested in, and certain ways, certain kinds of play you can do, negotiation skills, how to, really be a good dom consensually, how to protect yourself and be safe as a submissive, those kind of things. So just, the internet is our friend in this way. So definitely search for people teaching those kind of classes. There's a lot of people out there who really do know their stuff and can really share some really great skills. If you are in Los Angeles or a big city, definitely go. I totally recommend going to dungeons that do classes or other places that do in-person events around these same topics around kink. And again, go to all the classes. Like, just because you might lean dominant, definitely go to a submissive class just to see what that's about too. So if you're dominant, so you know what kind of headspace your submissive could be in when you're playing with them. And if you're submissive, go to a dom class just to see what headspace your dom could be in when you're playing. So that's just two examples. But yeah, it's really important to go to all the classes you can. I actually do host a class at a venue called 910 WeHo called Kink for Newbies. It's called Entrance or Entrance Kink for Newbies. And that's a really great class where there's no playing happening. It's literally a class. So, in my career as a dating coach, as somebody who speaks at colleges around sexuality and around the topic of sexuality and all of these topics, the biggest thing that I hear from people that I'm interacting with in workshops or coaching and that kind of thing is that people are really just trying to figure out who they are, what their boundaries are, what their likes and dislikes are, etc. And a class like Kink for Newbies is really great because it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? How do you know what you're into if you don't even know what the possibilities are? And so my job in all of the classes that I teach, and in particular Kink for Newbies, is to show you that there's not one way to do this. There's not one way to do kink and BDSM. There's not one way to hold the identities that you hold and enjoy these communities and these events. So yeah, just, trying to encourage everyone to explore and learn, and the world is your oyster if you do that. Kink for Newbies happens once a month in West Hollywood at this venue called 910 WeHo. And I do a ton of other events as well, a lot of empowerment events. You can find me on my website, thedatingadvicegirl.com, or my other website, erintillman.com, ERINTILLMAN.com. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Dating Advice GRL. So at Dating Advice Girl with no I in the word girl. If you want to learn more about dating, sexuality, empowerment around these topics, kink and BDSM, you know where to find me.
So yeah, thank you for making it all the way through this podcast. Again, my name is Maria Two Straps. If you need to get a hold of me, I would love to chat with you. I love connecting with people, especially kink curious folks and newbies. Such a fun world to explore, and I wish I had more time to even talk about kink, because I can blabber on about kink for fucking forever. You can find me on Instagram at _sex and squats. Again, that is at _sex, SEX, and AND squats, SQUATS. That will be in the show notes. You can find me there, and you can also find me on my website, www.sexandsquats.org. I teach some weekly groups on the Angry Therapist communities. So you can also find me there. I talk about kink and dating. I talk about men's dating questions answered by a lesbian. I talk about pleasure. I talk about other things too. And I'm also open to doing more classes and courses and groups that other people would like to listen to. So yeah, hit me up on those platforms, and I would love to connect with all of you. And I'm sure Erin has mentioned we do also teach classes in person. If you're an LA local, please come check out our events at 910 WeHo. We are expanding into another space too next to 910 WeHo, and so the dungeon's gonna be even bigger. It is a fun dungeon. Most dungeons are very like scary and intimidating, but this one I think is very newbie friendly. It's actually cute and it can be sexy too. And it's just a fucking awesome space. So you can catch us there. We do a lot of in-person events there. And I also do a lot of other in-person events at different dungeons. I do dungeon monitoring at multiple dungeons. You can just catch me running around Los Angeles if you're an LA local. So please reach out. You are all awesome. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and hopefully you got to learn a little bit about kink, and I hope it has piqued your curiosity if you're single and wanting to explore the space. And yeah, thank you all.
I hope that episode was helpful. Hey, listen, if you want to share your singlehood journey, if you've gone somewhere and come back, if you have revelations and wisdom, please share your story. It's going to help other people. Nothing makes us feel more connected than hearing other people's stories. So just send me the audio of your story, and you could just record it directly from your phone and email it to theangrytherapist@gmail.com. Also, if you want our Single on Purpose newsletter, go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life. You will get tools and articles and other people's stories, and also Zoom links to private gathers. So if you want to join our community, go to singleonpurpose.life. Thank you for listening. Be well. We hope you tell a friend. Hey, before you go, I want to invite you to the Single on Purpose private community online. It's off of social media. No ads, no algorithms. We got forums, we got live groups, we got webinars, and we have social hangs. We also have offline in-person hangs happening soon. So check us out. Go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life, and I will see you inside.